Welcome to the Betting Above the Rim podcast. Today's date, November 6th, episode 94. In today's podcast, we're going to do a bunch of previews. First off, we're going to preview a bunch of games being played between Thursday and Sunday, with one game on Thursday night between Minnesota and the Bulls. And then we have three games on Friday night featuring Bucks versus Knicks, Suns versus Mavs, and 76ers at the Lakers. Weekend games on Sunday, we'll look at Boston, Milwaukee, New York, Indiana, and then lastly, Dallas versus Denver. When we get to the college ranks, three pretty good matchups lined up this upcoming weekend, and this is the first Saturday of college basketball. We'll talk about Tennessee at Louisville, Arkansas versus Baylor, and Auburn versus Houston. And then we'll sprinkle in a couple of women's games that are going to be of note with a top 25 match, both of them top 25 matchups. First off, Duke and Maryland, and then NC State versus defending champion South Carolina in a rematch of the NCAA tournament. And we'll end today's podcast talking a little bit about Stephanie White and what I think her impact is going to the Indiana Fever. I know that was last week, but we need time to kind of digest it for a minute or two. Welcome to today's podcast. Let's get started in the NBA, where the first game we'll preview has the Minnesota Timberwolves at 4-3 taking on the Chicago Bulls. And when you look at this matchup here, you kind of look at the fact that at 3-4, I really didn't think they were going to be very good, but Billy Donovan's got the Bulls playing decent basketball, competitive basketball. When you look at the lines for this game, you got to think about that Chicago, folks, is going to be coming off a back-to-back. They do play Dallas on Wednesday night, which is tonight. Obviously, this podcast, you'll see it tomorrow. But right now, lines at FanDuel have the Minnesota Timberwolves -7 points. So when you look at this Minnesota team, it's getting these guys all, honestly, to be acclimated with each other, right? Obviously, when you make such a big trade and you're bringing the likes of a Julius Randle, it's about getting this team to play good and consistent basketball. So I think this is going to be a pretty good matchup here, as the Bulls are 1-2 away from home. Now, listen, when you look at this, it comes down to the play of Anthony Edwards, right? And Anthony Edwards is scoring 27.3 points per game versus the Chicago Bulls team that I don't think is typically, I don't think very, very strong. They'll be coming off of the back-to-back. They're giving up 135 and 120 points, respectively, their last two games. So to me, if you're looking at anything with this game, and you won't be able to bet, you actually can bet team props right now, but it's odd even. I would wait and look to see what the team total is for the Minnesota Timberwolves. You got to remember, Minnesota scored last 5 games, 114, 103, 119, 114, 112. So if they hang that thing about 113.5 or so, I think I get Minnesota to be able to go out and score because of the Bulls going on a back-to-back. So take a look at the Timberwolves minus the points, but more importantly, look at the Minnesota team total over. Next, Milwaukee, New York. Now, this matchup is intriguing because of the fact that Milwaukee's not off to a good start, folks. Let's just call it what it is. And Giannis is not happy by the way that this team has played. Now, when you look at the Knicks are also now going to be coming off a back-to-back. So that becomes intriguing here. But the Bucks 1-6, 0-2 at home, and we've already heard the whispers from Giannis. And it's really the play of the defense, the team that's lost 5 straight, 116, 114, 122, 119, 115. So they're not really playing well. So to me, you can look at the team total under for Milwaukee when it comes out. If they hang that thing probably at about 110 or 111.5, I may look under, because I think when New York is on a back-to-back, I think Tibbs is going to lean on his defensive side of the ball to try and get things done. When you look at the matchups here, you have to look at who stops Brunson. And I think that is something that you have to take into account in that Friday night game versus the Bucks. Jalen Brunson is a dynamic scoring guard, and Milwaukee can't stop good guards. If you just look at the last couple of games here, right? The 116-114 loss, to Cleveland. Darius Garland, 39 points. That's a scoring point guard. I know Donovan Mitchell was a little bit off. Game before that, 114-113 loss. You look at the box score here, and then what did you have? You had, obviously Garland only getting 11, but top 5 of 13. Donovan Mitchell getting 30. So in that case, you have two guys that can really score in the backcourt that can dominate the ball, right? You go back even further, the 122-99 loss that they had to Memphis. Got to remember that game, Memphis was up by, I think, 22 points by the half, right? So when you look at 22 points at the half, and Josh still had 26 points in 29 minutes. So to me, if you look at anything, look at Jalen Brunson over points. I think this is a game that he's going to dominate, and he seems to light up Milwaukee. Look what he did last year. Next game we'll talk about Friday night also is the Phoenix Suns at 6-1 heading to Dallas. And the Phoenix Suns team with Mike Budenholzer has looked pretty good so far. When you look at Phoenix at their record and the way they're playing, it's got to be encouraging to Suns fans. Now listen, they have started well before, so I know this is not anything to write home about. But remember, Phoenix Suns do have Miami Heat on Wednesday night, and then obviously they take on Dallas here. So there's not going to be any problems in regards to rest advantage, disadvantage for either team, right? So now you just line the teams up, and who do you take a look at? To me, it's probably going to be close to a pick 'em here, but I like the way obviously you're getting out of Phoenix. Now, the fact that P.J. Washington is out, that's one of their top defenders. So to me, when you look at Phoenix, right, who is P.J. Washington probably going to guard? Well, he's probably going to have to guard Kevin Durant, right? So you kind of look at Kevin Durant here, and he's getting 27.1 points per game, 6.6 rebounds, and he's shooting at 55% clip. He's scoring the ball at an insane rate. So if you take a look at that matchup, right, the first thing I want you to look at is a Kevin Durant points prop, right? I also think you have to look at what do you get in regards to the fact of does Derek Lively play, right? Derek Lively is already listed as a game time decision player. So if Derek Lively plays, I think you could look at maybe a Yusuf Nurkic double-double. A Yusuf Nurkic that people were kind of saying a little bit earlier on in the season, hey, they're playing better without him. Well, the last two games, he's gotten 15 rebounds each. So to me, if you either look at Nurkic double-double, which he got last game versus Philadelphia, 15-15 versus Andre Drummond, right, a player that plays inside, or you can just go Yusuf Nurkic to get 10-plus rebounds, maybe plus money if it is 12. Last game on the docket is Philadelphia versus the Lakers. And when you look at the Sixers are a mess already, right? They literally just got Paul George back, right? And in the first game that Paul George came back, that Paul George tried to do too much, because I'm sitting there telling everybody under the sun that team has got to lean on Tyrese Maxey. So in that 118-116 win by the Suns over the 76ers, Tyrese Maxey has got to get the ball late, right? Tyrese Maxey had 32 points that game, and it's really scoring at a really high clip. So to me, even with what you could get, folks, is you could get Tyrese Maxey's points prop come down a little bit because Paul George is there, right? So if they hang that thing at 26.5 or so, the shot volume for Tyrese Maxey is going to be there. But I look at the Lakers and I don't find that perimeter defender, right? Who is that guy defensively that's going to go ahead and lock you up or lock up a Tyrese Maxey? Tyrese Maxey, folks, let's be honest, is playing like a top 20 player in the world right now, right? The last game the Lakers had, the 115-103 loss, which we know the Lakers, listen, folks, the Lakers struggle on the road. It didn't matter that they had a rest advantage over Detroit. They don't play well on the road, right? But you look at the backcourt of Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham combining for 43 points. And those are two guys that can definitely, fill it up. You go back to even a 131-125 defeat of the Toronto Raptors, right? And Grady Dick got for 31 and RJ got for 33. There isn't a strong defender there with the Lakers. So points prop over for Tyrese Maxey is where I would be leaning right now if I were to bet anything on the game. But obviously these lines are not out. And do remember, folks, as we get to those games, you will see me on the Sports Grid app obviously give you my plays on those games. Moving to Sunday, because there isn't really a lot of great games on Saturday, I found three of them that I found pretty interesting. And let's start off with Boston, Milwaukee. Obviously, Milwaukee's going to play New York a couple of nights earlier. They could easily lose that game, and it could be 1-7. I told people from the jump that this was going to get ugly. And I said it before the season that if there was a guy I thought by the end of the year that's going to be asked out, it's going to be Giannis. Simply put, Giannis is sick of it, right? And at some point, you just brought Doc Rivers in a year ago, right? And I'm not a big believer in docking adjustments. So to me, I'm looking squarely at this Milwaukee Bucks team. If this Milwaukee Bucks team loses these two games, now they can't fire Doc Rivers, right? Let me just say this right now. You can't fire Doc Rivers after less than a year ago you fired Adrian Griffin. So you got to figure this out. The problem is they can't stop no damn body. And until they do so, they're not going to win. And if they don't win, I'm telling you right now, Giannis is going to ask out. Celtics see the Bucks, and they see a team that can't check them. So to me, you're looking at a player in Jaylen Brown who has really gotten off to a great start so far. I mean, I know it's early on in the season, but I mean, could you say Jason Tatum at 30 points per game, 7.4 rebounds, 5.1 assists, shooting the ball, 36% from three. Now, listen, he got off to a hot start. He's got to be a little bit better. But there isn't anyone out there that can stop Jason Tatum. And this is where Giannis has to come into play. Giannis has to guard Tatum, and Giannis has got to prove himself to be on the defensive end of the floor. Giannis has to want that smoke. Because I don't think he wants it on the other end of the floor because he's always trying to score. Simply put, the Celtics are the best team in the league. I know they have that one loss, that bad loss at Indiana when they were down big. They came back, lost in overtime. They're the best team in the league. Hopefully the line will be not too crazy. Give me the Boston Celtics. Knicks, Pacers. Oh my God, last game was an absolute beatdown. The Knicks were up by about 30. And the Indiana Pacers have been up and down, up and down. You saw the performance that they had versus New York, but then they turn around, right, a couple of days later, and they beat Boston. So which Pacers team is it, right? The thing is 127, 118, 132, right? 119, 118. Simply put, the Knicks team total, if it's at 115.5 or over, you got to go take 115.5. I'm taking the over. Because I think New York is going to figure itself out. I thought that game against Houston's the outlier. I think it was really physical. So I wouldn't really put too much into it. So look at the next team total over. Last game, Dallas, Denver, right? Folks, they're 4-3, and I don't like what I'm seeing out of Denver. They just got the news, obviously, that Aaron Gordon's going to be out for several weeks with a calf strain. And I think that's going to affect the team. Now, listen, the Nuggets have won 2 straight, but folks, they beat Utah by 26. I don't care about that. They beat Toronto by 2. They also beat Toronto on the road by 2. So if you look at their schedule, right? They're 4-3, Denver. Any team that I would deem to be good, 102-87, lost to Oklahoma City. 109-104 Clippers. That's because I think Tyronn Lue's one of the best coaches in the NBA. 119-116 loss at Minnesota. But look at their wins. Toronto twice, Utah once, at Brooklyn. And even Brooklyn got 139. Where's the win? Where is the win where you're like, oh my goodness, this is teams coming around. I'm going to say this, folks. There could be a chance that they get to that game. They got to play Oklahoma City Wednesday night. That's probably going to be a loss. They have to play Friday night, Miami, and they could have to turn around and play Dallas on Sunday. I think they may lose all 3. And the crazy thing is, folks, all three are at home, the Mile High. Like, this is where this team should excel, right? This is what you're thinking. But the problem with this team is this team generally is just not playing well. Yeah, they're shooting the ball 37.2% from three, but, besides, Michael Porter Jr.'s gotten going a little bit at 16.9, they just don't have the depth. I was down on Christian Braun. He's been better than what I thought at 14.9, 4.9. But they don't have the depth behind their starting five. So to me, I think they worried him out. Go ahead and look at Dallas to go ahead on the money line and get that win on the road. Switching to the college game now, and three really good matchups. First, led off by Tennessee heading to Louisville. Louisville, Pat Kelsey, the former coach of College of Charleston, has come in with his team. They got off to a good start, getting a good win, 93-45. I know it's opening game. You're like, whoop-de-damn-do. But Pat can coach. And his teams tend to be very good offensively. This is a game where I do think Tennessee, because of their pedigree, should be the favorite as a number 12 team in the country. I think that Pat can coach. I'm going to go with Louisville plus the points. They should be a home dog, which, obviously, my trend of, home dogs, not by a lot of points in college basketball means upset city. So if that thing is 3.5, 2.5, 4.5, Louisville getting the points, I may just take Louisville on the money line because I think they may find a way, and I'll give Pat a really good win to start the season. Next game will be the second game. Well, Cal opens up tonight. Okay, and I'm so intrigued by this Arkansas team. When we did our podcast last episode, and we did our college basketball preview, I sat there and I told you that St. John's was going to be, I think, the surprise team in the country. If you give me a second, it's Arkansas. I have this feeling that I think Cal's going to be motivated. I think Cal's team's going to be ready to play. And you have Jonas Adu, obviously, is a stud, the transfer out of Tennessee. You look at, obviously, having John L. Davis coming over from FAU, Boogie Flan, they got players here. Carter Knox, one of the top freshmen in the country. DJ Wagner follows him from Kentucky. I feel like Pitino and Cal are going to have redemptions this year. Maybe this is the old school coach in me, but I can't write off Cal yet. I think Cal's going to be motivated. I think Cal's going to be ready to play. And I think here's the thing. Baylor got absolutely worked. And what better way for Cal to start this off is if Cal gets a big, big win. I got a feeling here. I'm going to take Baylor. Which is going to be in Dallas at the American Airlines Center. So it's going to be a home game for Baylor. But Arkansas fans are going to travel. I think you're going to get a win here. And listen, Baylor can't be any worse than they did opening night. But I got a feeling about Cal. I got a really strong feeling about Cal and this team. Give me Arkansas to get the win. Last game will be interesting because of the defensive presence between these two teams. And that's the matchup between Arkansas and Houston. Houston may not be getting the respect that they deserve as of yet because of who they've lost. Now, they're still fourth in the country. But you look at the fact of losing a Jamal Shad, right? The type of player that he is. Losing Marcus Sasser the year before. People start thinking, well, could this be a slip-up? Could this be a slip-up? I don't think so, folks. And I've always been a Kelvin Sampson guy. And Kelvin Sampson is going to lean on his defense. When you still look at this Houston team, right, you still have LJ Cryer in his second year. You still have Jawan Roberts still there. You still have Emmanuel Sharp. You have enough there. Archino comes off the bench now at 7 points in the opening matchup, right? I think that they got enough. Now, they're not going to be able to dominate the game in regards to scoring. I think they got to play their game. And I think what that lends to an under. Because I think when you look at the way that they play in regards to Auburn, I don't think Bruce Pearl will be worried about getting into a rock fight. So to me, the play here when it comes out and see where it hangs out is I like Auburn, Houston to go under. Okay, so really quick, you will take Louisville on the money line. I'm going to take Arkansas, and then I'm going to take under in Auburn versus Houston. Let's end with women's basketball here in two big matchups. First off, with Duke taking on Maryland. Now, Maryland has brought in some transfers here. Christina Dalsay, who came a star at Rutgers Prep right here in New Jersey. I'm familiar with her game, heads over from Villanova. Mari DeBerry is trying to work herself in. She transferred it from UConn. And, they, did what they had to do, which is a blowout win versus UMBC. Duke, obviously, 89-36 win. When you look at this matchup here, I'm leaning Duke. I just think Carol Lawson has done a really good job of getting his team to play really, really well. You look at the play of Delaney Thomas, who opening, just coming into her own, only 5 points a game, 12 points opening night. I look at Duke and I look at this team. I look at this team as being a team that can make a deep run in March. I've always believed that Carol Lawson is going to be a great coach. I know some people kind of wish he went back to Rocky Top to Tennessee. For me, I'm looking squarely at Duke to go ahead and get this win. Second matchup, NC State versus South Carolina. And when you look at this game, okay, this game is all about the guards. Interesting enough, you looked at NC State, they won 80-55 versus East Tennessee State, but it was closer than you would think. It was only a 2-point game at the half, outscored by 7 and then by 15 in the third and fourth quarter. And when you look at NC State, I said it's going to be about the guards. It's going to be about the guards. Obviously, you look at the playoffs, Anaya Rivers, 12.5 points per game last year. And obviously, her play will be critical to this team. Sanaya Rivers, 11 points in opening round match. Only had 12 shots. And then there's a play, another Jersey kid. I'm going to give my Jersey girl so much. Shout out to my man Maurice Brooks' kid, Zoe Brooks, St. John Vianney High School. This girl is a walking bucket. If you haven't seen Zoe Brooks play, you got to go watch this kid. As a sophomore, only scored 9 points a game last year, came off the bench, but was really good in the Final Four game. Struggled for the floor, but had 12 points, 5 rebounds. This kid can absolutely score. The issue that you got to deal with is just as good as the guards are for North Carolina State. You got to look at, I know Camila Cardozo graduated, but boy, these guards from South Carolina are something, and they just got to uplift because Ashlyn Watkins, her charges were dropped. This is an Ashlyn Watkins that got you 9.2, 7.4 last year, right? A rebounding machine. So I don't know if she'll be back, and how much minutes she's going to play because, I'm sure she may be doing stuff on her own as she got ready. But a South Carolina team that had a little bit harder of a game than people thought versus Michigan in a 68-62 win. I think they get the rust off. But for me, you look at Papao and what she could do. For Wiley, what she could do. She was 2 of 10. She did not play well. You look at the fact that Raven Johnson stepping up, being more than just a defender. She went 0 of 8 from the floor. So you're going to tell me, right, that Papao, Raven Johnson, and Wiley are going to go combine, 6 for 26? That ain't happening. They'll play better. Give me South Carolina minus a point. Once again, we're going with Duke in the matchup versus Maryland, and we're going to go with South Carolina minus a point in a rematch of last year. This has been your bet. Oh, last thing. Well, I almost forgot. Stephanie White's situation, I think, is pretty interesting because Stephanie White, folks, remember, okay, she was with the Connecticut Sun. Connecticut Sun, DeWanna Bonner, free agent. Alyssa Thomas, free agent. Right? Brianna Jones, free agent. Those are the 3 best pairs. Right? Carrington, restricted free agent, and you traded your first round pick to Chicago to get Marina Mabrey. So basically, you may only have one starter back. They also don't have a really good practice facility. I think that's become a bigger thing in the WNBA. Look at Las Vegas. Look at some of these other Indiana. Look at some of these other teams. So for a chance for her to go home, back to Indiana, right, where she coached the Indiana Fever, where she went to college at Purdue, this makes sense for Stephanie White to go home. I've said this before. I'm going to say this again. I thought that the Indiana Fever going into next year was a number 4 team in the WNBA, right? New York, Minnesota, Vegas. But with Kelsey Plum being a free agent, unrestricted, and maybe the Valkyries step in and bring in Kelsey Plum. Remember, she's from California. And Stephanie White moving over. And she made it known. She mentioned 3 names off the jump. Caitlin Clark, obvious. Right? Aaliyah Boston, obvious. Kelsey Mitchell, who's a free agent. So I think they bring Kelsey Mitchell back. Lexi Hall takes a bigger step up. And then Alyssa Smith maybe leaves. Right? But I believe in that coach. I believe in that young roster. And I told you that championship window is going to be here for a long time. Stephanie White puts them in that championship window. I think right now, going into the season, right now, if Kelsey Plum leaves the Las Vegas Aces, the Indiana Fever are my number 3 team in the WNBA to start the 2025 season. This has been your Betting Above the Rim podcast for November 6th. For all things sports gambling, download that SportsGrid app. Pre-game, in-game, post-game, profit predictions, and more from the very best in the sports gambling industry. Next podcast will be scheduled to be taped on Monday. We'll review the NBA and the college basketball, and we'll kind of get going as the season kind of gets towards Thanksgiving. Things will start to heat up. You'll have some good matchups in college basketball, and the NBA is alive and well, and that NBA Cup is coming soon. Emirates NBA Cup. Make sure I say it right. It's not the preseason tournament. For my producer, Matty George, Vinny, who always does a great job with the graphics. Thank you so much for listening, folks. And remember, it's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Good night. Hi, my man. Okay. Hey, listen, good job. You know, we got it.